Hi, and welcome back to the Alex and Dom Show. I'm Alex.
And I'm Dom.
And today we're going to finish up part 2 of Henry Lee Lucas and Ottis Toole.
Very nice. I have been waiting to see how it ended. I know, obviously, the end result, but I kind of wanted to see how they got there.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's pick up with Henry Lee Lucas. After last episode, he had killed his mother, went to jail, and got released for being overcrowded.
Really?
Yeah, it was too overcrowded. So they released him early.
I wonder how often they do that.
Not very often for murder people, like people who are convicted of murder.
I feel
now,
like it happened more back then than it does now, but because even today, there's a real serious problem with the prisons being over.
well, now it's more privatized, and
That too,
it makes
yeah.
more money than back then. So, in 1971, Lucas was convicted of attempting to kidnap 3 schoolgirls. While serving a 5-year sentence for the crime, he established a relationship with a family friend and a single mother who had written to him, which happens a lot more often. Yeah. They married on his release in 1975, but he left the marriage 2 years later after his stepdaughter accused him of sexually abusing her.
Yeah, well, I would think it's probably more of an accusation based on his track record and everything else.
I mean, he really could have did it. Lucas began moving between various relatives, one of whom got him a job in West Virginia, where he established a relationship which ended when his girlfriend's family confronted him about another sexual abuse allegation.
Yeah, dude, he's 100% doing these things.
Yes, absolutely. So every time he's went to go stay with a relative, he has been turned away.
Yeah, he can't keep his molesty fingers to himself.
Treated poorly. They all hated his mother. All the siblings hated the mother.
Yeah.
So they didn't blame him for killing her.
Right.
And they weren't mad. But when he wore out his welcome.
Yeah, it was when he was sexually abusing
he was like,
family members.
They're like, oh, well, you killed mom. They would turn it against him.
Yeah.
Because, Henry loved his mother. He felt horrible that he killed her.
Right.
So he would, they would say that, and he'd just be like, oh, I guess I'll go. And, so after all of that, Lucas befriended Ottis Toole and settled down in Jacksonville, Florida.
Lots of stuff happens in Florida.
Yep. And we're going to pick up with Ottis Toole now. Ottis Toole stated that he committed his first murder at the age of 14 after being propositioned for sex by a traveling salesman.
Wow.
Toole ran over the salesman with his own car. Toole was first arrested at the age of 17 in August 1965 for, what do you think he did in 1965?
Assault, sexual assault.
Nope. Loitering.
Loitering?
Yeah. He killed somebody at the age of 14.
Yeah.
Ran over with his car. Didn't get in trouble for that.
But he got in trouble for loitering.
Yeah, but he got in trouble for standing around.
That's so stupid. But that's how they get a lot of them, though. Is it if they get some petty, unrelated crime that lets them be able to get stuff out of them?
Yeah,
get evidence and stuff.
Much evidence and information of Ottis Toole between 1966 and 1973 is unclear, but authorities believe that he began drifting around the southwestern United States and that he supported himself by prostituting and panhandling. I don't know if you've seen a picture of this man, but
yeah,
there are some pretty desperate people out there. While living in Nebraska, Toole was one of the prime suspects in the 1974 murder of 24-year-old Patricia Webb. Shortly after he left Nebraska and briefly settled in Boulder, Colorado.
Oh wait, he was under investigation for this murder?
Mm-hmm.
So you're not allowed to leave the state when you're under investigation, right? So if they must have cleared him.
No, he
Unless
just
he
left.
ran.
He
I was
just
gonna
left.
say,
Back then, they didn't, which is why a lot of serial killers got away with what they did. They didn't. They didn't talk to each other. Yeah, they didn't talk to each other at all.
Yeah.
I mean, look at Richard Ramirez and the Zodiac Killer.
Yeah.
They were in the own state didn't talk to each other.
And a lot of serial killers that were caught were because different departments
came
together and shared notes.
And they did that with the Zodiac killer, but it was too late.
Yeah.
If they had done that to begin with,
they
probably would have caught him.
Yeah.
Shortly after he left Nebraska, he was in Boulder, Colorado. 1 month later, he became a prime suspect in the homicide of 31-year-old Ellen Holman, who was murdered on October 14th, 1974. With many accusations against him, Toole left Boulder and headed back to Jacksonville.
So he's going from place to place, allegedly or possibly killing people as he goes.
Yeah.
I don't know how much of it, he actually did, because obviously they weren't able to pin those murders on him, but he does confess to a lot. And that's Henry Lee Lucas. Never mind.
They both do. They both confess, and they also feed off each other.
Yeah.
It's kind of like they're one-upping each other.
Right.
Yeah. So Lucas befriends Ottis Toole and settled in Jacksonville, Florida. There he lived with Toole's parents and became close to Toole's adolescent niece, Frida Becky Powell, who had a mild intellectual disability and had escaped from a juvenile detention center. By escaped, Lucas walked in and took her out.
That's messed up.
A period of stability followed, with Lucas working as a roofer and fixing neighbors' cars and scavenging scrap. So he literally did the same thing he did with everybody else, but Ottis didn't care.
Yeah.
Their family didn't care.
Yeah.
And in early 1975, Toole returned to Jacksonville, like I said, after drifting and hitchhiking through America South. On January 14th, 1976, he married a woman 25 years his senior. She left him 3 days later after discovering his homosexuality. Toole later said during an interview that his marriage was a tactic meant to conceal his true sexuality.
Didn't work very well. I mean, if it only lasted 3 days.
Yeah. So
that's the only thing she had had a problem with him, was that he was homosexual. Nothing else about him set off red flags.
No, I guess not. I mean it is Florida.
That's like not even.
It's Florida.
Yeah,
it's Florida. So when he met Henry Lee Lucas, they most likely developed a sexual relationship, because Henry Lee Lucas was a homosexual or bisexual, at least bisexual, and a necrophiliac.
Right.
Which means he had sex with dead bodies.
Yeah, which is disgusting.
Yeah. There was interviews that he did where he described that he could not even get it up unless the person was dead.
Ugh.
So Toole later claimed that he had accompanied Lucas in 108 murders.
Right.
108.
There's no way. I'm sorry, but like, I can
108.
108 murders for the.
Dude, they didn't get caught for like 10 years.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just saying they are known for copping to stuff that they didn't do.
Yeah,
so
but
that number is probably also.
I mean, I believe they killed a lot.
Yeah, they probably
drifting.
killed a lot, but I don't know about because even some of the more prolific serial killers haven't killed that many
that we know of. We don't always know the true number. Sometimes they've overinflated it, and sometimes they underinflate it. Yeah, so that's not the most unbelievable of his claims that they did.
Right.
Sometimes committed at the behest of a cult called the Hands of Death.
Oh my God! So they were part of this cult, or they started?
This is what they claimed. Okay, so the Hands of Death is a cult down in the Everglades of Florida.
Okay.
Right? Allegedly. It's never been proven. And what they do is they go and kill people for the devil.
Right, which is wrong.
If anyone's read the tenets of the Church of Satan or the devil worshipping stuff, you're not supposed to kill anyone. It's literally just about living your best life with free will. But so they go, and the stories that they tell are unbelievable. Okay, so you know what Henry Lee Lucas looks like.
Yeah.
Okay. The way that he came off in this book that they wrote about this, is that he is a badass, right? him and Otis are badasses.
Of course,
So they took this guy down to a river.
They prey on children and freaking helpless people. So
they took this guy down to the swamp or the river or whatever, and they gave him a whiskey bottle to sip out of. Mm-hmm. And Henry slit the guy's throat and caught the bottle before it hit the ground. So he slit the dude's throat as he was drinking.
Yeah.
And then caught the bottle before it even hit the ground.
Okay.
That's how smooth it was.
I bet.
Yeah, this dude who can't see out of one eye.
I know, right?
Who has probably the IQ of like 70.
Yeah.
So, and Otis Toole, who's one of the most ugly men I have ever seen. And they both
think that they're hot shit.
They both stink so bad. Like being
his milky eye.
Yeah, being a drifter in the 70s and 80s, I'm sure wasn't the greatest smell because, they didn't have anywhere to bathe or whatever. They were literally living on the road. But like I'm pretty sure like there was certain truck stops that had like showers.
You'd imagine, but I don't know how that was back then. So.
Or the Y. I mean, the Y had showers. All right, so on January 4th, 1982, Toole barricaded a 65-year-old George Soenberg in a boarding house where he was living in Jacksonville and set the house on fire.
Why?
According to him, they were having a lover spat.
Oh.
Soenberg died a week later of injuries he sustained in the fire. And in April 1983, Toole was arrested for an unrelated arson incident in Jacksonville. Toole confessed to the crime and was sentenced to 20 years in prison.
And that's when he started his confessing thing?
Yeah.
Or? Okay.
Toole signed a confession stating that he and Soenberg had begun a sexual relationship and the two had an argument. So he set his house on fire.
Yeah.
With him in it.
Ridiculous.
All right, so go back to Henry Lee Lucas. Powell was put in a state shelter by authorities after her mother and grandmother died in 1982. Lucas convinced her to run away with him, and they lived on the road, eventually traveling to California. They went all over this country. Henry Lee Lucas and Otis Toole, they literally went all over the place.
Yeah.
There's literally murders that may be tied to him as far up as Alaska.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So they went to California where an employer's wife asked them to work for her infirm mother, 82-year-old Kate Rich. However, Rich's family turned the couple out, accusing them of failing to do their jobs and writing checks on Rich's account.
Wow.
Yeah.
They just keep getting away with all this crap.
Yeah. While hitchhiking, Lucas and Powell were picked up by the minister of a Pentecostal religious commune called the House of Prayer, located in Stoneburg, Texas.
One guy's associated with a cult. The other guy is associated with a
church.
Church.
I wanted to see, because the hands of God, or the hands of death, the hands of death didn't come out until they were already in prison and they were talking to each other.
Yeah. That's convenient.
Yeah. Believing Lucas and the 15-year-old Powell were a married couple, looking at this girl, like, there's pictures of this girl. Mm-hmm. She looks like a little kid.
Yeah.
So, and he's like an old-ass man, like a grown-ass man. Like, no. So the minister found Lucas a job as a roofer while allowing the couple to stay in a small apartment on the commune where they even attended church services. And when I say a small apartment, it was a chicken coop.
Yeah, I wouldn't even classify that as an apartment, to be honest with you.
It was like literally a shack that they used to keep chickens in.
Wow.
Powell became argumentative and homesick for Florida.
I would
When
too.
she turned up absent,
kid?
Lucas claimed that she left at a truck stop in Bowie, Texas.
What?
In 1983, Lucas was arrested on charges of unlawful possession of a firearm by Texas Ranger Phil Ryan. Later, he confessed to many murders, including of Becky Powell and Kate Rich. and led the police to the purported remains. Although forensic evidence alone was inconclusive, the coroner stopped short and positively identifying either of them.
Why?
Lucas's participation.
Always some stupid shit. Like, really, do your job. If you're going to be a cop, if you're going to be a coroner, whatever, do your damn job. That's giving people closure at the very least. Jeez.
So, so let's go back. So, basically, the Kate Rich situation was she made friends with them. While they were living there and drinking the beer and catching jacks and stuff, they were like, hey, no, you got to go and stuff. So they went to the church, right?
Right.
So Kate Rich was a friend of Becky, not Henry. She adored Becky. Mm-hmm. She wanted her to be a Christian. She wanted her to get away from basically Henry and stuff. So really, they were fighting because she didn't want to live in a shack anymore.
Right.
She thought basically, according to Henry, she got ideas in her head that she deserved better.
She did deserve better. Like,
yeah, she did. So they argued, and he left with her. He was like, "Okay, we're gonna go and stuff." And then they argued and argued and argued, and in a fit of rage,
oh no,
he killed her. And according to him, that was the only time they ever had sex.
Because he's a necrophiliac.
Yeah, he killed her and then.
That's so jacked up, dude.
Had sex with her body, dismembered her, put her in pillowcases, and then strung her across the wilderness.
I don't understand how people can do this kind of shit.
And then returned and said that she had gotten on a truck
in Texas.
Now, this is all per him.
Yeah, this is his.
So we're going to come. So remember that. Remember what his confession was, right? Okay. So he goes back to the church, and they're like, where the hell is Becky?
Right.
Because they didn't like Henry. They loved Becky. Henry he stunk.
Yeah, he's an unpleasant dude.
He's not very charismatic.
Yeah.
Like I said, there's only so far as Christians are willing to go.
Yeah.
So, for acceptance. And then, so Kate Rich was like, okay, where's Becky? I don't trust you.
Yeah.
So she was like, okay, he's like, I'll take you to church. They get in a car.
Why would you get in the car with him if suspected that he was responsible for the disappearance of your friend?
And then he said he had to pick something up first. He had to get beer before going to church.
Yeah.
So he goes over a state line to get beer or county line, because in the county that they lived in, it was a dry county.
Right.
You couldn't sell alcohol. So he goes and gets a beer, and he kills her.
Yep.
He kills her, has sex with her dead body, takes her back to the church where he lives, and then burns her in the stove.
And nobody else
they did find some teeth and a little bit of bone fragments and stuff. Well, this is the police after he confessed. So they did find evidence that someone
burned a body.
Either burned a body but they said that the bones could have been chicken bones.
Yeah, but the teeth?
Like, she could have just lost a tooth. She was part of the same church. She had been over there to visit Becky and Henry.
Yeah, but no,
so,
dude, he 100% did it.
Yeah. But, so, after the weapons charge, he came up to he confessed to that, and the judge is, how do you plea, or like that, and then he was found guilty for these two murders.
Mm-hmm. Good.
And he's like, well, what are you going to do about these other ones I committed? And he's all like, how many years like that? And he threw out a number. What do you think the number was?
108.
No. At first he said 60.
Okay.
All right, he was like around 50 or 60 and stuff. And then the Texas Rangers were like, okay, let's go through these confessions.
Yeah. Logically, as one would do.
He got a carton of cigarettes every 2 days.
Yeah, why?
Just to keep him happy, keep him confessing.
Oh, yeah, because they have to make sure he wants to continue
pot of coffee. He got coffee nonstop. His coffee cup was never empty.
And coffee.
Cigarettes, coffee. And then he got a strawberry shake.
Oh, how nice.
So basically, these Texas Rangers who were keeping him, were having other law enforcement agencies come to see if, hey, maybe Henry did these things for you, did these murders.
I wonder if he's thinking in his head, I wonder how long I can keep them thinking that I did this stuff just to try and see what they'll give me to confess the stuff I didn't do. You know?
Okay, so he craved attention.
Yeah, obviously.
He loved being the center of attention.
Yeah.
And they weren't mean to him at all. They liked him a lot.
Yeah.
Like he didn't have handcuffs. He walked around the jail freely.
That's so stupid.
He never once tried to escape, ever. He literally was a model prisoner at this spot.
He's getting fed 3 times a day, and
yeah, milkshakes. And they're like, hey, if you want to hear him confess to it, or if you want to even talk to him,
doesn't have to worry about
bring a strawberry
panhandling
milkshake and a carton of cigarettes.
That's ridiculous.
And that's what the payment was to get in to see him.
Yeah, the talk.
Yeah.
That's
They
crazy.
even had interviewers come from Japan. And he's like, I did some in your country too.
No, he didn't.
And they're like, well, how'd you get there?
I know.
And he's like,
There's no
I
way.
drove.
He drove to Japan? Oh, my God. This guy's an idiot.
This man is so intelligent. he drove to Japan. What if he did, though?
On what?
I don't know. He could. No one knows, man. No one knows.
There's
There's a secret tunnel,
No, there's not.
a
There's no
car
secret
tunnel
tunnels.
that goes from California to Japan.
No.
There is.
No.
There is.
No.
Look it up. Google it.
I don't need to Google it.
there isn't. That'd be cool as shit, though. Elon Musk needs to go ahead and make that now.
We can't even get the infrastructure in this country. We need to worry about the stuff here.
Well, that's why we'll let the Japanese to do it. Let the Japanese do it.
Yeah.
So after that, he was started confessing like crazy.
Yeah, I bet.
And then we come to the Orange Socks Girl.
Oh.
So the Orange Socks Girls was literally named Orange Socks Girls because that's what all she was
has
wearing
orange socks, yeah.
at the time of her murder. Or the time they found the
found
body.
her,
Yeah. So can you imagine that's how you're identified?
By orange socks.
No, just like the last thing you were wearing.
Yeah.
Like they didn't even know your freaking name.
Mm-hmm. That's what they call you. That would suck.
Yeah, it really is. So
Like, dying is bad enough, but dying in, like, you know, being murdered by someone and then you're having your body dumped and then nobody knows who you are for, like, 20, 30 years afterwards. Awful.
So let's go through the confession by Henry Lee Lucas. So Henry Lee Lucas confessed to her murder,
Right.
the Orange Socks Girl. Although there was no physical evidence that he had even been involved in the killing, sexual assault, or disposing of her body.
I'll tell you what he did. He probably sat in the jail cell or walked around reading a newspaper or whatever, saw it like, oh, found a body. Yep, that was me. I did that.
No, the police came and asked him directly.
Oh, okay.
And even like, so the way that he confessed was they came in, showed him pictures of the crime scene.
That's like suggestive.
Yeah,
like
literally,
They're
he-
giving him an opening to be able to, like, oh, yeah.
He's a very good reader
They're
of people.
feeding him.
Yeah, so he read them and was like, okay, cool, I'll just tell this and this and this. And like, most
I bet he could
likely.
probably even like use some basic context.
Oh,
clues
when
to
he
try
got-
and predict.
When he got it wrong, they're like, are you sure about that?
Oh my God! See, they're leading.
I
him,
don't think
and
you.
then they're like,
I don't think you remember that right. Are you sure you didn't go through this door?
I wouldn't be surprised.
And then he's like, "Yeah, I
if they
think I
just wanted
did."
to use him to like
Close
close
cases?
some of these
Yeah,
cases.
absolutely.
That's ridiculous.
So he stated in his confession that he picked her up in Oklahoma where they had sex. He asked her for sex again while he was driving.
This is Henry Lee Lucas. You said
Yes.
This already doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, considering the fact that he's also stated that he can't get it up unless
Multiple
they're
times,
dead.
yeah, that he's unless he's dead.
Yeah, he asked for sex while he was driving. He claimed that this time, she said, not right now,
Uh-huh.
and attempted to leave his car. At which point he killed her, raped her corpse, and then drove her body to Georgetown. Lucas told authorities that the victim had stated her name a previous name as being Joni or Judy. He had previously showed officers, however, how he had supposedly dragged her body over a guardrail when taken to the location where her body was found. Although Lucas was in Florida when the murder had taken place.
Be kind of hard to do.
So the interrogators also stated that he had contradicted himself several times in confessing to this murder.
Yep.
And his defense also stated that he was shown images of the crime scene before his interview.
Oh, my God.
In order to have traveled to Oklahoma, to Texas, and back to Florida, it was estimated that he would have to drive an average of 70 miles an hour without stopping, which may find unlikely considering the fact that he picked her up, had sex, and asked for sexual advice, and then raped her and then killed her. So, he later recanted the statement of his conviction in 1984, and George W. Bush, the governor of Texas, commuted his death sentence to a life imprisonment.
Why? Because they feel like he's still committed.
He's still committed murder,
heinous ass crimes, even if he didn't commit some of the ones that he confessed to. He still killed people.
Okay, so he had confessed to over 3,000 murders.
That's absolutely ridiculous.
Which would make him the most prolific serial killer to ever live.
Right.
In any country.
Yeah.
But later on, he recounted all of his confessions, stating that the only murder he had ever committed was his own mother, Viola.
I don't believe that either. Like, he killed his mother, but I think he killed more than just his mom, too.
I think he killed at least Kate Rich.
Yeah, and
his mother. Wait.
No, and the other girl, too.
Hold on. So, they finally figured out who the Orange Socks woman was. 40 years after she had been murdered.
Wow. See,
it takes so long, and they had composite sketches. They had renderings, artist renderings and stuff. So I don't understand why it takes them so long. Like, no one care?
I don't know.
So they identified her by a DNA match with her surviving sister in 2019. So her sister was like
still alive. Yeah, just didn't know where her sister was this entire time.
Yeah, didn't question it. Didn't be like, no, I wonder where.
Yeah,
where
for real. For freaking.
She borrowed my orange socks and never gave them back.
Right.
Sorry, that was. But her name has finally been known in 2019, and that she had been strangled and believed had been dead only hours before her discovery. So she was literally only dead for a few hours before they found her.
Yeah.
And her murder was believed to have been taking place on October 30th or 31st in 1979. Halloween. Her body was naked except for the pair of orange socks. Her nickname, Orange Socks. And her name is Deborah Louise Jackson.
Huh. And we just recently, 2019, figured
2019,
now,
just figured that out.
Do we know for sure, like, whether or not it was him that killed her, or is it...
There's unknown who killed her.
So she figured out who she was, but they couldn't figure out.
She disappeared in 1977 in Abilene, Texas.
Yeah.
Mm. So she died October 30th or 31st in 1979.
Wow. So she was missing a while.
Yeah. She was 23 years old.
Weird.
Yeah. My thing is, I really hope that she was strangled before sexually assaulted.
Yeah. Well, either way is
I mean, yeah, either way, but like, at least if she's strangled first, she doesn't have to deal with it like that. Yeah.
But still, it's just god awful.
So, I mean, basically the perpetrator has been disputed, obviously.
Yeah.
Because Henry Lucas would have had to been driving like a madman to even do that, and would have had little time to get there.
Yeah.
He was found guilty, Henry Lucas was, of capital murder, sentenced to death, but commuted to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole.
Right. So he ain't never getting out, but
No.
still, he avoided the death sentence.
So,
Coward. All the people he killed didn't get to avoid the death sentence.
so in jail, as he's confessing to numerous murders, reporters and families of these confessed people are like, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
They started fighting back.
Yeah.
They're like, no, Henry Lee Lucas did not do
they
this.
They want the closure. They want to know who it was.
Yeah.
And they want the person responsible for it to have been caught and punished.
So,
and if Henry Lee Lucas is taking credit for these things, then that's taking credit from the person that might have actually done it, and then they don't get that closure.
So then they started getting, he was sending letters and stuff, and then something popped up on the news. A lady claiming to be Becky Powell came on the news.
Becky.
Yeah. Stating that she had wanted to leave Henry because she didn't like the smell, and then she didn't like living in the chicken coop.
Right.
So she hitched a ride with a truck driver.
Which is what he said she did.
Yeah, at a truck stop. Later marrying him, and then living.
Driver.
Yeah, truck driver.
So
and married.
That part of his story is true. If this lady really is Becky Powell, obviously.
She had the same scar as Becky.
Shit.
And everything. Right.
That's wild, dude. So this entire time, like, obviously he's still a bad fucking dude, but
yeah. So he's like, see, I didn't murder her, and I didn't murder Kate Rich. The only murder I've ever committed
what happened to
was
Kate Rich?
Viola. Turns out they found correspondence between Becky and Henry Lee Lucas. Turns out she really liked how he looked and started sending letters saying, hey, I kind of look like Becky. And he's like, so he literally walked her through how to become Becky. The lady, she wasn't Becky.
So it was an imposter.
Yeah, it was an imposter.
Oh.
Becky is really dead.
Oh.
And he did
what
murder
a roller
her.
coaster that was. That's insane.
So
That's crazy.
Yeah, I know. But it goes to show you that, like, because all these people are like, oh, well, he didn't do all these murders and stuff, and they're making him feel bad, but he manipulated the system and stuff so he could get out of jail. Because if Becky was alive,
he wouldn't have gotten charged for that.
Yeah. And Kate Rich didn't have a body.
Yeah.
No body, no crime.
Yeah, exactly.
So it doesn't matter. Like
what did happen? She probably did get killed and burned in the fire, though. Kate Rich did.
Yeah, 100%. She probably did. Yeah.
And Becky obviously.
Becky is, and
they don't have a body for her though either.
No, they found a body
for Becky. So
they found some body parts of Becky.
Gotcha.
In pillow cases where he said he threw her.
Huh.
So yeah, she's dead. Like,
that's so jacked up.
Yeah, I know. So during the prison sentence, right, Otis and Henry were talking to each other. Mm-hmm. And let's get into some of Otis's confessions. He did confess to a lot of murders, too. He, while talking to Henry Lucas, became the hand of death. Mm. And he goes, hey, you remember when we cooked that guy?
What?
And ate him? And Henry Lucas was like, yeah, I didn't like the taste of it. And he's like, but it was good with barbecue sauce. So
they, like you were saying, they
were like, they're playing off each other. I don't think they committed cannibalism.
I don't know. If he's a necrophiliac, I wouldn't be much of a stretch.
Yeah, but Otis Toole was like he was too. But I just don't believe that he was
part of a death cult.
Yeah, death cult, and he definitely was not as badass as he said he was.
Oh, God, no.
All right. So on March 12th, 2001, at 11 p.m., Lucas was found dead in prison.
Oh, what happened to him?
From congestive heart failure at the age of 64.
Oh, no way.
Yep. He was buried in Captain Joe Bird Cemetery
death sentence
in Huntsville, Texas. Why? It would have took him that long to freaking carry it out.
Maybe. Sometimes
he wanted to die. That's the only reason he confessed to this Orange Sox murder. Yeah. Orange Sox murder, because he knew he was going to get the death penalty. So
then they got a community,
when
though.
George W. Bush was like, or H.W. Bush was like, hey, nah.
Well, if he wanted to die, I guess it'd be more of a punishment to
Keep him alive.
keep him alive.
Yeah,
but still,
absolutely.
He also had free reign of the jail, though, and
yeah,
all these
he had a
comforts
good
and
life.
amenities.
He found he
which is
became
absolutely
Christian.
fucking ridiculous. Yeah,
He
you shouldn't have
became
been allowed
Christian.
to do any of this after taking all of those people's lives. And that's I agree with, or I say that with about like any violent criminal.
Yeah, absolutely. So, if you guys want to hear about one of the most famous cases that Otis Toole confessed to, subscribe to our Patreon as little as $1, and you can listen to it. It is the murder of Adam Walsh.
Yes, that was
and
a
we
hard
go
one.
through that entire episode, the day that led up to the murder, what happened to the body, and why he confessed.
I'll still never
To
look
it.
at Sears the same way again.
Yeah.
Not that it's around anymore, but
Well, it's a lot.
not
it's,
really.
There's
Not
some.
like it used to be.
No. It used to be like every freaking mall had a Sears in it. Yeah. So, Toole died of cirrhosis.
Of the liver.
Yeah. At the Florida State Prison on September 15th, 1996, at the age of 49.
And even younger.
His body went unclaimed, and he was buried in the Florida State Prison Cemetery.
Well, serves him right.
Yeah, absolutely. So he literally.
We don't know
yeah.
really what he has done and hasn't. Well, we know for sure at least a couple of them, but there's a lot that we don't know.
He was only convicted. Otis Toole was only convicted of 2 people.
Yeah.
Just like
Henry Lucas.
Henry Lucas.
Yeah.
Was on. Well, he was convicted of 3, but Otis Toole was again found guilty for George Sorenberg.
Yeah.
Because he killed him.
In the fire.
Yeah. And then later that year, Toole was found guilty of a February 1983 strangulation and murder of a 19-year-old Tallahassee, Florida woman and received a second death sentence.
Yeah.
On appeal, however, both sentences were later commuted to life in prison.
It's weird that
He
they
also-
both have such similar,
Yeah.
like 2 serial killers that end up just happen to be put in the same prison and they're so similar to each other is weird to me.
Yeah. He also...
Like the chances of one, are pretty rare in the grand scheme of things in the first place, 'cause
Yeah.
it's a weird situation, but to have 2 in the same jail that are that similar to me is just, it's wild.
Yeah. And also, there was... he confessed to 4 more murders and got 4 more life sentences.
How did they prove that he just
He
gave
just
him the
confessed.
information?
Yeah. I mean, technically, Henry Lucas confessed to at least
a lot more. Yeah,
I think 600 that they could not prove that he didn't do.
Right.
Like, they can't prove that he did it, but they can't prove that he didn't
They
do
can
it.
rule it out all
Yeah.
together.
So 600 is his confession count that they stuck with him, and Otis was 6.
Crazy.
Yeah. So that was Henry Lucas and Otis Toole.
Very, very wild ride.
They were very sick
That was an
individuals.
interesting story for sure.
Yeah. I just feel really bad for the victims.
Yeah. We always do.
I
Every
really
time we talk
want.
about
I
any of
want
these.
Deborah Jackson, the Orange Sox girl. I really want their killer to be found so that they can have the family. At least her sister can have closure before she dies.
Although, just saying, she didn't know where she was at this entire time. Didn't care.
Well, in the 70s, people disappeared.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, she could have had a like. I'm assuming she was like, I kind of wish that like she was off with her own family
Yeah.
and stuff and doing her own thing,
Yeah.
not dead.
Right.
But back in the 70s and 80s, bodies littered the side of the road. They still do, really. Like our highway system, there's just bodies lay.
Yeah.
The truckers die and stuff. But I do think that the Deborah Jackson, Orange Sox girl, wasn't murdered by Henry Lucas. I think it was
somebody else.
probably either another serial killer or
She was
just
just
a truck
murdered.
driver.
Yeah.
Truck driver or a traveling person who is on the road a lot, and something went wrong and he killed her. I don't know. It's dangerous
Hopefully someday we'll figure it out.
to be a hitchhiker.
Oh, God, yeah.
Yeah. So that's why on every highway you see, there's no hitchhiking
Yeah.
for that specific reason. So, I mean, what shocked you the most about Henry Lucas and Otis Toole?
Well, it was the back and forth, not knowing if Becky was alive or not alive. For me, that was the most interesting part of the whole thing. But nothing really shocked me about them. Their backgrounds, both of them had pretty sad childhoods.
They did,
which is awful. But we talked. I already knew the basics from when we did the Adam Walsh episodes.
Yeah,
but it was interesting to find more details out and figure out a little bit more about their
about Otis Toole's background and everything. So, there's one more little snidbit about Otis Toole that I found quite funny. He stated that he had no problem picking up men,
right,
as a gay man, right?
Yeah. And
if he couldn't pick up a gay man, he'd dress like a woman to pick up a straight man. You've seen pictures of him, right?
Yeah.
This man is an ugly man. I can only imagine how ugly he was as a child. Not child, woman.
Lots of makeup and...
there's not enough. Yeah. Like, they got to be blackout drunk and, like, low lighting. And so like that. He did have a very low, like high pitched voice a little bit.
Yeah.
And then, but like, nah.
You don't think you could pass off as a
No. No. Maybe if I had never seen a woman in my entire life, like I just got here from space.
Yeah.
And I had been traveling and my entire race was men. Mm-hmm. And then that was the first person I'd ever seen getting off the planet. You're getting on the planet. And I'm like, that's what women look like? I'm so glad our whole race is men. So, yeah, no, he was, ugh. All right. Thank you guys for listening. Again, like we said, if you want to listen to that Adam Walsh episode, and there's a couple more episodes on the Patreon and some other stuff, you can subscribe as little as $1 a month and get all of those episodes. So just show us support. If you feel like we deserve it, give us a 5-star rating. If you don't want to go to the Patreon and everything, so
always appreciate those ratings.
Yeah, comment if you're watching on YouTube. Make sure let us know what you want to hear next, or if we're doing good. So we'll see you next week for the You're a gay and okay. Wow, I don't know. So there's a plane crash in the Andes.
Yeah.
Don't worry, I'll pronounce it right next week. All right, we'll see you then.